You have driven over it 100 times without a thought. The river below is brown and slow and tells you nothing. But 40 feet down, in water so dark he works by touch alone, a diver runs his glove along the base of a concrete pier and feels the riverbed simply fall away beneath it. What he found there closed the bridge by morning. There is a line we have all quietly agreed not to look past, and it is the surface of the water. Above it, a bridge is a solved problem. It is engineering, permits, guardrails, the reassuring hum of tires on the deck. You trust it the way you trust the floor of your own house. Below the waterline, though, the bridge becomes something else entirely. It becomes a set of concrete legs standing in moving water, in the dark, in the mud, where no driver will ever look, and almost no one ever goes. That is where a bridge actually lives or dies. And that is the part of it we have decided, as a country, simply not to think about. The only people who look are the divers. Before we go under with them, if the hidden machinery behind the world you move through every day is the kind of thing that keeps your mind turning, take a second to subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel. And I want to know one thing while you are here. What is the biggest bridge you cross on a regular basis? The one you would never in 100 years imagine being closed? Drop it in the comments. You may look at it a little differently by the end of this. Now, let's go beneath the waterline. Here is something most Americans have no idea is true. By federal law, nearly every bridge in this country that crosses more than about 20 feet of water has to be inspected underwater on a fixed schedule, generally once every 5 years, not looked at from a boat, not photographed from the bank. Inspected by a human being in the water, hands on the structure, checking the parts of the bridge that the public will never see and never think about. And these are not weekend scuba hobbyists. Many of the divers sent down are engineers first and divers second, people trained to read a crack in a pier the way a doctor reads an x-ray, who happen to also be certified to do it 60 feet down in a river. They go under the interstate, into the harbor, beneath the county road over the creek, and they feel their way along concrete and steel and timber that has been sitting in the current since before most of us were born. The conditions are worse than you are picturing. In a lot of American rivers, visibility underwater is measured in inches. Divers describe working by what they call the Braille method, with water so brown and churned that they cannot see their own hand against the pier, so they read the entire structure with their fingertips. They run a gloved hand slowly down a column, feeling for cracks, for soft rotted wood, for the ragged edge where solid concrete turns to crumbling nothing. They reach the base of a pier and feel for the one thing they fear most, the thing that has quietly killed more bridges in America than anything else. They are feeling for the ground. Because the enemy down there is not usually a dramatic crack or a rusted beam. It is the disappearance of the riverbed itself. Engineers call it scour, and it is the single leading cause of bridge failure in the United States. Scour is simple and merciless. Water moving fast around a bridge pier speeds up, curls, and digs the same way a stream carves a hole around a rock. Over years, and especially during a single hard flood, that current lifts the sand and gravel out from around the base of the pier and carries it downstream. The pier was built to stand on that material. Now there is a pit where the support used to be. Push it far enough and the water eats down past the footing. The wide concrete pad the whole pier stands on until the leg of the bridge is hanging over a hollow it can no longer feel the bottom of. Nothing on the surface changes. The bridge looks exactly the same from your car. The failure is entirely underwater, entirely invisible, and it is only a matter of how much before the leg tips, which brings us back to the diver and to what actually happens when one of them reaches the bottom of a pier and the stream bed is not where it is supposed to be. In 2025, in rural Prince Edward County, Virginia, that is exactly what happened. Divers went under a bridge on Route 612 and found significant scour at one of the piers. When they measured it, the numbers were bad in the specific way that ends a debate. The current had undermined the pier's timber pile foundation, and stripped the riverbed down roughly 3 feet below the bottom of the footing, along the entire length of the pier. 8 of the 18 piles holding that pier up were no longer buried in anything. They were just standing there in open water, exposed, doing a job they were never designed to do without the earth packed around them. The Virginia Department of Transportation did not schedule a study or open a comment period. They issued an emergency closure and shut the bridge that day, because the honest engineering answer to how long until that pier moves is nobody knows, and you do not gamble a school bus on nobody knows. A road that a whole community used was simply gone overnight, detoured for miles, because of something no one driving over it could have seen or felt or suspected. The bridge above the water was fine. The bridge below it had been quietly failing for years. If that sounds like an overreaction, you need to understand why the people who do this job never, ever wait. You need to understand what they are haunted by. On April 5, 1987, the New York State Thruway crossed Schoharie Creek on a bridge that had carried Interstate 90 without incident since 1954. That spring, days of rain had swollen the creek into a violent, muddy flood. Deep underwater, unseen by anyone, the current had spent years and then finally days digging the stream bed out from under one of the piers. Scour, the same quiet process, doing exactly what it does. That afternoon, the undermined pier finally lost its footing and dropped, and a span of the bridge fell about 80 feet into the flood. Cars drove off the broken edge into the water before anyone could stop them. About 90 minutes later, with rescuers already on scene, a second pier let go and another span came down. 10 people were killed. There had been no warning anyone could act on because the thing that was failing was underwater, out of sight, in a place nobody was required to inspect. Schoharie Creek is the reason so much of this now exists. The disaster helped force the country to take the underwater half of its bridges seriously, to write the rules that now send divers down every 5 years to feel for exactly the hollow that killed those 10 people. It was not the only warning. 2 years earlier, in 1985, a bridge over Chickasaw Bogue Creek near Mobile, Alabama, gave way and dropped a section of roadway out from under traffic. A Ford van went airborne off the collapse, struck one of the fallen piers, and sank in about 20 feet of water. And the driver, almost unbelievably, climbed out with minor injuries. Investigators found the cause was undetected deterioration of the steel piles holding the bridge up. Undetected. The word does all the work. The bridge had been rotting where no routine inspection was looking, and it kept carrying cars right up until the second it couldn't. In the aftermath, federal highway officials pushed every state to build a real underwater inspection program. And within a few years, the requirement was written into national standards. That history is why a diver in a Virginia creek in 2025, feeling 8 bare piles in the current, does not file a report and go home. He surfaces, and the bridge closes. Everything about the modern system is designed so that what was found beneath Schoharie Creek is never found too late again. And here is the part that should genuinely change how you see the drive home. This is not rare. Scour has been blamed for roughly 6 out of 10 bridge failures in this country. Of the major bridge failures studied across one 15-year stretch, more than half traced back to the current eating out the ground around the piers. Every bridge over moving water is exposed to it, all the time, and a single big flood can undo in one night what stood for 50 years. Nor is Scour the only thing waiting down there. In warmer, saltier water, the divers are hunting a different killer entirely. Marine borers, small organisms that tunnel into the wooden piles that hold up thousands of older American bridges and hollow them out from the inside. On a bridge in Mississippi, inspectors documented years of exactly this. Outer shells decayed, voids and borer holes riddling the timber piles below the waterline, until the structure had to be emergency repaired before it could safely carry traffic again. A wooden pile can look perfectly sound where it meets the air and be a fragile shell an inch under the surface, eaten out by things too small to see. Only a diver with his hand on it, pressing, feeling it give, will ever know. So think about what that means the next time you cross water. The deck under your tires tells you nothing. The pretty railing tells you nothing. The slow brown river tells you nothing. That is the whole point of it, that a river's surface is a perfect liar about what is holding still underneath. Everything that determines whether that bridge lives or dies is happening in a place you cannot see, in the dark, in the cold, where a current has spent decades patiently digging, and where the only warning you will ever get is a diver coming up out of the water with a measurement in his head and a decision already made. Most of the time, the news is fine. The piles are buried, the concrete is sound, the stream bed is where it should be, and the bridge earns another 5 years. But every so often, a diver reaches the bottom of a pier and feels the ground fall away beneath his glove, and a road that thousands of people trusted without a second thought is closed by nightfall. Not because anything visible went wrong, but because someone finally went and looked at the half of the bridge we all agreed to pretend wasn't there. The water is the same water whether or not you are looking at it. The current has been digging since long before the bridge had a name, and the surface of every river you cross tells you almost nothing about what is holding still beneath it, waiting the way it has always waited for someone brave enough to go down in the dark and put a hand on it.